Greetings, YouTube. I had a question about crossbows. This is a crossbow. It's a very simple, low-tech crossbow, very light pull. This is not much of a pull at all. And the person was discussing crossbows in their use in a post-apocalyptic setting. Now, we have a good representation of bows in Skyrim as a video game. And later they did add in crossbows, but while they weren't in the base game is beyond me. Um, but when it comes to PA games, like video games, so a visual representation of crossbows and bows, you don't see many of them. And for example, they're completely missing from Fallout. You have to get uh, custom DLC, like people's mods and stuff like that, to get crossbows. And I'm not sure if there are bows at all. There may be bows in available as a mod. I'm not positive. Um, but zip guns and pipe guns are, in my opinion, overrepresented in many ways. There's way too much ammo in the world of Fallout 4. Remember, this is 250 years after the war, in a setting where there has been no development, zero development, other than like the Institute. All right, the world of Fallout 4 looks like that war happened 2 months ago. 2 years ago, maybe. It doesn't look like it should look 250 years later. You know what the world looks like 250 years after the apocalypse? Star Trek. So yeah, the fact that there's so much ammo in the world makes zero sense. There's nobody cranking out ammo out of factories. Ammo's everywhere. They just shouldn't exist. People should be using black powder weapons at best in the tech level presented in the game. But one of the things they should be using are bows and crossbows. Now this is a very simple crossbow. All right, it is. Here's the body of the crossbow. Here's the prod, and you notice the prod is very simple. This particular prod is made out of fiberglass, artificial sinew string, which could be made from actual sinew if you have to. It's got a simple groove for the bolt to travel in. It has a simple brass grip here, which my buddy, he screwed in. He screwed it in, and then he put two nails in it, one of which has actually come slightly loose from use, though I haven't used this thing in ages. And then we have the most simple trigger mechanism in the universe, which is a lever here, which happens to be made of out of deer antler. It's tied in place, all right, so there is no mechanical fasteners of any kind right there, other than the line. And then this brass pin goes vertical, and you have it in the down position. You load in your string, comes back here, put your bolt in, and you go, boop. That's it. You just go. Use my head as the background. Boop. Just that little bit. Boop. And that pushes up the line enough that it slips over this little tiny ramp section, and your bolt goes down range. This is very light. It is really, you kind of do it like this if you want, or more likely you just put it in your arm's length and bring your finger up, because it's very point and shoot. Again, this is more of a toy than anything else. But the principles involved in this are the same for any kind of crossbow. Okay? Prod, line, body, trigger. They're the same for every kind of crossbow you're going to find. Whether it's a little tiny thing like this, which is not much more than a toy, or something that can throw a bolt through a bus. Okay? And yes, there are in fact crossbows that could have easily put bolts through buses. Some of them are very high tech in the sense that they have crank-ins, or they have goat's foot levers to help load them and such. But everything involved is low tech in its actual application in the real world. A blacksmith can make the highest tech crossbow if they are skilled. And this could be made with almost no tools. A talented person could make this thing with a knife. All right? And in the real world, if you want to use like wood and such, you're going to have to use pure wood's going to have to be a very large prod. Essentially, you're going to be making a bow attached to a body. But if you get more high tech and you have access to, say, fiberglass, or you have the access to like the ability to laminate wood, and you can laminate it with fiberglass and bone and horn and sinew, then you can make yourself a prod that is the characteristics you want and is shorter, kind of like this one is. If roughly the kind of proportions most people think of when they think of crossbows, which is a prod roughly the length of the body itself. Um, but you really, to get that kind of strength, you're going to need to have a laminated wood prod, unless you start going into other things like fiberglass, carbon fiber, or of course, metal. And in a post-apocalyptic setting, metal is ubiquitous, particularly in America. Every car in the world is going to have leaf springs in it. All right? And leaf springs, especially trucks, are going to be excellent sources for crossbow. A leaf spring, particularly a small one if you can find it, is already the right shape and everything. You're going to want to put it in backwards. You're not going to want to put it in this prod shape because that's not really how it works. You're going to want to put it in this way, and your bow comes in, and yeah, it's going to look a little weird, but you'll get more of the spring from the steel because the steel is designed to take the pressure. If it's bowing this way, it's designed to take pressure in this direction. It's not designed to really take their stress in this direction. So yes, but you have that steel. It's quality steel. Anyone with some skills could turn that into a functioning prod for a crossbow. They are low tech, folks, and they are deadly. Like I said, you can make a crossbow with a 1,200-pound pull. Now, admittedly, that 1,200-pound pull is less usable energy than a bow of the same size because the prod is so much smaller. So you may be only actually getting about 600 pounds of energy at the point of impact with your bolt. That 600 pounds of energy with a bolt is going to pin someone to a car. If it doesn't go right through them, if you don't hit any bones, you just hit flesh, you're just going to punch a hole through somebody. These are dangerous. They're low tech. They are quieter than a pistol, not silent. Even this thing isn't silent. And even a bow is not silent. It's just far less noise than a firearm is. And beyond, 25 or 30 feet, you're effectively not going to hear a bow. And beyond about 60 feet, you're probably not going to hear, or 70 feet, you're probably not going to hear a crossbow. So if somebody's got someone at, 120 feet away or so, and they're shooting, that person is not going to be able to tell from sound where that bolt or arrow came from. They're just going to be like, where the heck? They're just going to get hit or missed and have no clue unless they can figure out the trajectory from where it lands. But you can make this low tech, and you can make the ammo also low tech. Anything vaguely shaft or tubular shaped, and lots of things like that are going to be available in a post-apocalyptic setting. Antennas, which do exist. The parking stakes made out of fiberglass. Shafts from trees. Tubes you might find for equipment of some variety. Aluminum tubes, steel tubes. Aluminum tube with a steel point is an awesome arrow. Fiberglass, carbon fiber, wood, you name it, can be turned into a functioning bolt of some variety. And you can have all kinds of different kinds of impact heads for different applications. From like a bodkin style hardened point to getting through someone's armor, though in a post-apocalyptic setting, realistically, most people aren't going to be wearing much more than leathers or maybe some aluminum or some kind, maybe if they get lucky, a riot shield. There aren't going to be a lot of really heavy, high-tech weapons, armor rather, because you get to the point where people are making high-tech, heavy or quality steel armor, you're probably past the post-apocalyptic setting. Remember, post-apocalyptic settings are a temporary situation. They are not permanent like Fallout 4 would give you the impression. But these belong in Fallout 4. Bows belong in Fallout 4. And these are far lower tech to produce than any firearm is ever going to be. Because there shouldn't be ammo in Fallout 4 after all that time. Everybody should be using this. Ammo should be like gold coins. They should be so rare. Gold is rare in Fallout 4. That's how common firearm ammo should be in Fallout 4. Because if there's nobody producing it, it would have been used up a long time ago. It's worth its weight in gold. Whereas a crossbow, anybody can make. Anybody can make the and you can use them to hunt and to kill effectively. Yes, they're slower than a firearm, but then a zip gun isn't all that fast. Really, realistically, a zip gun is not fast. It's a single shot weapon that is going to be slower than a bolt action rifle. Even a single shot bolt action rifle is going to be faster than a zip gun. And this is going to be this one right here is going to be almost as fast as a bolt action rifle. Single shot, if you're skilled with it. Yes, if heavier ones are going to take far more, but if you have a bunch of them in mass, you're all set. Now, as far as training is concerned, this is dirt simple. You saw how I described to load this thing, and you just point it and you pull the trigger and it fires. You could turn someone into a competent user of this particular crossbow in an hour, and you could make them a viable hunter at short range of people or animals in a few days, a couple of weeks. There's an old saying about bows. If you want a great archer, start with the grandfather, because using bows is a far more difficult process than using a crossbow. They're easier to make. They're easier to train. They're almost as efficient as firearms. They don't penetrate armor quite as well, but again, and realistically, you're not going to be encountering heavy tech armor in a real post-apocalyptic setting. How it's presented in most video games and tabletop games, it's a lot like the Middle Ages, just with mutations and lasers. And that isn't how it's actually going to be. It's going to be more junk armor, more repurposing of real-world items. People repurposing what kind of plating they can find, and it's not easy to find steel plating that's going to work as armor. It's much easier to find leather and fiberglass and plastics and things like that that are much more ubiquitous in our world. And to work steel is much more difficult than to work these other items. So yes, crossbows absolutely have a place in a post-apocalyptic setting. The fact that they don't find themselves available in every kind of video game, and they are not emphasized as being really useful, is somewhat annoying. There was one piece of fiction I read. I think it was part of a post-apocalyptic game. It was a piece of fiction, and it talked about a group of adventurers, and the guy who was in charge of the group was lamenting how quick one of the members was to use her gun, because a single round of the ammo in the gun, the firearm, technical term, firearm, could feed the entire party for a week. Whereas their crossbows were incredibly deadly, and they all had them, and they could make their own ammo. And that's the real world. A crossbow like this, even this toy in a post-apocalyptic setting, could be the difference between life and death, particularly in a world that you are in post-ammo realm. If you were in the post-ammo realm because technology has not come back for some absurd reason, and people are back to using black powder weapons, bows and crossbows are even more effective. Yes, you can carry a pistol hidden in your pocket. Awesome. But when you're out in the wilderness, a bow or a crossbow is going to be more deadly than that black powder weapon to most people, because you can fire a bow a lot faster, it's quieter, and you can make all the ammo for your bows and crossbows on your own without having any worry about getting black powder. So yeah, I'm a big proponent of crossbows in games. They make sense, they're easier to produce, and they can be deadly. So I've blathered on enough about crossbows. So if you have any questions about crossbows, I am not an expert, but I own one. I have used them in the past. I have been researching them since I was 12. I've been researching pretty much all weapons since I was 12. So I've got 40 years worth of research in my skull. If anybody would like to tap into it, I may be able to help you. I am not a weapons expert. I've never claimed to be a weapons expert. But when I was discussing that with someone once, they said, "How many reference books do you have?" And I said, "I don't know, more than I can count." He says, "How long have you been researching?" And I said at the time it had been about, 35 years or so. And he said, "Well, guess what? If you have that much information and that kind of resources, and you know all this stuff in your head. You're a weapons expert. I just had my screen go blank on me because it timed out. I'm praying that that has not actually affected my video. I guess we're going to find out when I look at it. So let's talk about bows and crossbows in post-apocalyptic settings. Do you think they have a place? Does it annoy you that they don't show up more readily in games and with their tabletop or video? And do you own a crossbow?